Hello, everyone, and welcome to the IWWG bi-monthly open mic on Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock on September 24th, 2020. I'm Kelly Dumar, and I'm here on the board of the International Women's Writing Guild, and I'm so honored to have the opportunity to produce this bi-monthly open mic and to welcome our featured author for today, Luci Tapahonso, who is going to read for us and then answer some questions. I just want to remind everybody with a few logistics, many of you who are also here to read as well. Katerina Konin, also on our board, volunteers to help me in the background, and she knows who's on our list, and I'm going to give her a chance to read through the list before we get started, just so you know your name is here. Now, feel free to communicate with Katerina in the chat room and let her know if for some reason you didn't hear your name or you signed up and you've changed your mind, and she'll keep track of all of that for us. So, Katerina, wave your hand. I know everybody can see you. Yeah. Alrighty, so can you unmute if you are ready, Katerina, to read the list of our readers who've signed up for, as a reminder, a 3-minute slot. If you're new and haven't read for us before, we are really tight with our 3 minutes. We actually time you, I time you, and I actually have to stop you if you go over 3 minutes. It's horrible, I hate doing it. So we do ask you to practice reading your work aloud in any genre before you read. But I will sort of nudge you and let you know you do need to stop at 3 minutes if you do go over. And please don't take it personally and come back again next time. And we're not mad. We just have to keep going through our list. Katerina, go forth.
All right. Ricky Aiello is our first reader. The next reader I only have an email address, no name. It's atcity67@gmail.com. If you write me just a chat message, I can put your name in. Anita Larrick, Cynthia Bunker, Hannah Sabet, Darlene Lee, Hina Khan, Anna Milak, Suzanne Westhus, Estella Holman, Susan Shefflin, Karen Edwards, Gail Newman, Tracy Gregory, Patricia Benuya, Betty Pierre, Cipra Roy, Andreen Bonner, Celia Sorhaido, Alice Klukertz, Pallavi Das, Joanne Bodin, Jacqueline Chalyi, Jackie Callum, Karen Rose, Arvid Marin, Lindsay O'Neill, Leslie Newstad, Barbara Mayfield, and that is our entire list. And so I apologize for any mispronunciations of names. It's my American attempts at American pronunciations colliding with German accent. So please don't take it personally, and feel free to correct me. And I will, what I will do is I'll go through and see who's actually here on that list. And then when we're ready to read, I will go through the corrected list.
Okay, I see a question from Anita. Sorry, we aren't able to use share screen to share our work today. Alrighty, but thank you for asking. And so please everybody mute if you're not muted. I am going to introduce our feature for today. And what I want to tell you about Luci Tapahonso is, I'm going to give you a little bit of a formal introduction to her today. And then I'm going to let you know that I will be putting links in the chat room how to follow up with the rest of her work. Luci Tapahonso was Professor Emerita of English Literature at the University of New Mexico and served as the inaugural Poet Laureate of the Navajo Nation. She's a recipient of a 2018 Native Arts and Culture Foundation Artist Fellowship, Additionally, she's author of 3 children's books and 6 books of poetry, including A Radiant Curve. She recently served as judge for Poetry Out Loud, the New Mexico High School Poetry Competition, and was selected as 2016 Best of the City, Our City, and State's Prolific Authors by the Albuquerque Magazine. Luci has delivered keynote addresses at several conferences and institutions, including Harvard University, Gallup Central High School, Kenyon College, Institute of American Indian Arts, the Basili International Literature Festival in the Republic of Georgia, and Creativity Week at the University of New Zealand at Auckland and Wellington. She recently completed a script for an exhibition called Creating Tradition, Innovation and Change in American Indian Art for the American Heritage Gallery at Walt Disney World's Epcot, and is completing the manuscript for her next book. Luci Tapahonso lives in Santa Fe with her husband, Dr. Robert Martin, who's president of the Institute of American Indian Arts. We welcome you, Luci, here today.
Thank you so much.
And before you read, I am just going to mention that I'm going to be turning it over to you, but I just wanted to say that for today, we really appreciate your blessing, which I'd like to read, and I know you're going to give a blessing too. May we always recognize the multitude of gifts that surround us. May our homes, schools, and communities be filled with the wisdom and optimism that reflect a generous spirit.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be with all of you. This is really quite different for all of us, I think. So I appreciate the invitation and the opportunity to share my work, and then also hear your work as well. So thank you. I'll introduce myself in Navajo and then read a poem. She Luci Tapahonso nishke twadik ocean shlido twadik eating bashim dash cheating dash chedo can the cheating dash another not only nes then igisi nasha all the igisi shoan okut el nesan shlim. So I told you what my plans are. I'm born for Twidditch, and then I am Twidditch, and then I'm born for Twidditch eating. And I'm originally from Shiprock, New Mexico, and I also told you what my grandfather's clans are. I haven't been able to go to Shiprock since the pandemic started, so it's I appreciate the opportunity to read and to acknowledge my relatives and my home place and my people, my family there. I also have to introduce somebody that I didn't plan on her presence, but here she is on my lap. This is Lupita. She's I'm afraid she's going to bark, so I'm just holding her so she'll stay calm. So I'm going to read a poem, start with a poem called Ilinagwana Ligehi, Goods of Value. Ilinagwana Ligehi, Goods of Value. Yes, those days are over when our childhoods were immersed in Ilinago Hane. Stories and songs that were conveyed with delight, reverence, or sometimes tears. Hane is always bound with comfort. When the grown-ups began talking, we paused our loud play and tussling and squeezed in around the table or settled on the floor nearby. Our visceral need and appreciation for stories took over as we absorbed the rhythm, pauses, rises, and falls in their voices. Something inside us urged us to remember, not to forget. We also knew the exact tone, that slight dip in tenor when we had to leave the room. because it is said that a child's ears and mind are vulnerable. They would say, we hold our children in much respect. Decades later, we shared the same stories with our children and then our grandchildren, this time mixed with English. We sing the same songs. The children have learned to listen and to ascertain whether they could ask questions. They too grasp the intent, the underlying resolve in the pauses, smiles, dips, and echoes of Saad, the wisdom of the old words, long prayers, and timeless songs. The adults who surrounded us in childhood are gone now, and Nakai. They have left on their journeys, but their Hana, and songs remain. The prayers, laughter, and songs that guided them into old age remain with us. It was their Saad, verbal properties, a form of soft goods that kept them steady. Saad strengthens our minds and bodies like a sislagai, the silver belt that encircles one's waist to keep our posture upright. They used to say, the holy ones will see us coming at a distance, adorned with stories and jewelry. And they murmur, Ashana Sha'aware, my beloved little ones. Thus, we honor them by wearing the jewelry they created, and we revere the world they put into place for us. The mountains, rivers, sky, plants, stars, birds, and animals. They too have great value. Like our elders, our hope is that the young ones become the Nebeta'ilini, persons of virtue, the man who helps when the stranger's car stalls, the one who offers the exact words of comfort when needed, gives a soft hug, or holds your hand in silence, the one who cooks for the grief-stricken when the hours become a blur and exhaustion hovers at the doorways. Those times when the scents of stew, just baked bread, and coffee linger afterward. Or the person who turns an ordinary day into a jovial gathering, complete with Elinago Hanet and Jian Sakanigi, good stories and tasty dishes. Once again, the house fills with outbursts of delight when the door opens as relatives arrive. We trust that the young ones will offer a bed to relatives who would otherwise sleep curled against cement buildings or panhandle on street corners, distraught and thin, beset by criminal cravings our ancestors could never fathom. They are kin who have veered from their Elinigo Hanet. For them, the stories are echoes that can't be named, like the resonating childhood voices that visit on the coldest nights. They pawn the family's hard goods, the valuables that were carried about as Hanet, the sod at the spiral center of the taunt basket that was created to weave the past into our future, into our present and future. Still, we are grateful for the women who still wear long skirts and turquoise jewelry as if each day is sacred. they say. She elinago na lehi naso na shadow. I will go forth into the day bestowed with hard goods. I will go forth into the day clothed in my shield of hard goods. They were bestowed at their first laugh dinner. Their parents too always wore a bracelet, earrings, or bolo tie. They remember the times of crisis when everyone helped each other and prayed while clasping small, soft pouches of corn pollen. Today, they carry their childhood offerings throughout the day as overhead the sun's many-colored horses gallop across the sky. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. If anybody wants to unmute just to give some applause, you're welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Or you see these hands waving. Lucy, could you say the title of that again?
It's called Linagona Lehi, Goods of Value.
Aha, goods of value. That is a long poem. Is it new for you?
Yes, it's a few months old. Yes, I wanted to write about, in Navajo, we have soft and hard goods that are really sort of the center of our daily life, the centers of our daily life. So I wanted to write about why we wear jewelry and the meaning of it, that it's not just aesthetic, but it's spiritual and cultural and historical. So.
It's how you're recognized by the ancestors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was part of what I heard.
Mm-hmm. So in addition to that, by introducing ourselves, it's like recognizing and calling our ancestors, our grandparents into the room with us, so that as we read or work or whatever we're doing, cook, that they're beside us and they guide us and still, they still take care of us even though they're not physically here.
It's soft and hard goods?
Yes. So soft goods are things that are not tangible, like songs and stories. It's songs and stories and prayers, teachings. And then hard goods are things that are like jewelry, baskets, pottery.
Things that are made by hand?
I guess so, yeah. They're made by, that are tangible. And so they might seem like a basket, a Navajo basket might seem like something that's commonplace or, just quite ordinary, but they're imbued with our stories and our history and teachings, as well as like a baby's cradle board contains the whole, almost when the baby's in the cradle board, the cradle board symbolizes really all of Navajo, the Navajo cosmos, or the Navajo worldview is symbolized in the cradle board, as in the basket and in jewelry.
And the cradle board, is this a carved?
It's a Navajo cradle board is made of wood, and it's wood that's taken from a live tree. And there's, I wish I had one here, but there's, it's made of wood, and the back symbolizes Mother Earth. The baby's laying on Mother Earth, and then there's a bow over the top, which protects the baby's head should, if it's accidentally knocked over or something, but that's symbolizes the rainbow. And then there's ties that hold the baby in, and that symbolizes lightning. So parts of it symbolize like the sky and
it's taken from a live tree. Specifically. That element is important, you would say, because
it it sort of affirms the relationship between living things and us. So like the tree is there to provide food and protect us and to provide shelter. And so when the cradle board is made for it, all those kinds of attributes are the baby's cradled in it. So it recognizes the relationship between living things and our own lives, and how we're all related and help each other.
I'm so glad we're sort of, deepening the image of the cradle here with you telling us about that, because I think that your whole poem that you read for us felt to me, my experience of it was like a cradle or a cradling. It was very rich and encompassing, but it felt like a container to hear you express it today.
Thank you so much. That's kind of the intent of that our ancestors and the holy people had. That's how sod is like embodies all the wisdom of our ancestors, and then Hanet is the stories. So that's why they exist, and that's why they make sure that we don't forget, because it offers us comfort, and it just kind of centers us regardless of what's going on in the world.
Yes. So don't forget is certainly one of the feelings that, one of the principles that really seems to be very much embodied in this poem. Don't forget your ancestors. And all the different ways that you bring in memory and remembering, and the presence through the objects, the goods of daily life. Really struck one of the lines that really jumped out at me. I know jumped out to perhaps others too, Lucy, because someone else mentioned it in the chat room. I noticed, we hold our children in much respect. That was, Karen has her hand raised. I'll get to you in one second, Karen. So that principle comes through so powerfully, evoked the respect that is held for children and also for ancestors. But specifically, so I'm thinking and just sort of wishing you would just say a little bit more about that core principle of, it sounds so beautiful. And again, it's part of the cradling experience of your poem, and listening to it, we hold our children in much respect. To hear that from an elder, a grown-up for children, I think is so important. And I'm just not sure how much we say that enough.
The line before that is, they would say, so there's a variation of the title, which is Ilinago Naligehi. Ilinago, there's different variations of it, but it basically means something that's highly valued, something that is of great monetary and spiritual value, something that is sacred. So when they say yeah, we hold our children in much respect, like our children are the most valuable of what we have. And so in this instance that I'm referring to, when they would tell stories, it was all the whole family, everybody of all ages would be in the room. At a certain part, they might start to talk about something that was maybe meant for adults or that we wouldn't understand. And you know, I don't know how we knew, but we would just kind of look at each other and then go out of the room, because they would always tell us that whatever you hear and whatever you see, that it was their responsibility to be careful with what we absorb, because we were very valuable, and if they weren't careful, we could be hurt or injured or traumatized by something that we're you know, that wasn't meant for us. So we would leave the room, and
The impulse came from within the children.
we knew ourselves. We knew ourselves. And then, you know, it also sort of explains why in Navajo we don't have any profanity. We don't have words that exist in in English, you know, to demean or degrade or hurt other people. We don't have any words like that. We also don't have the words to say I'm sorry. So you know, it goes back to the Hane, which is that language is really sacred. In fact, you know, we're taught that the sacred begins at the tip of our tongue. So whatever we say is sacred, and what you put into the world is sacred. And so you have to, you know, we're taught to be really careful with how we use language and the things we say, because they can't be taken back. And then it also reinforces the fact that we're told as children and as babies, that when we first laugh and we become a part of this world, we become part of the social world. Up until that point, we're in the world of the holy people. So around 4 or 5 months, when a baby first laughs out loud in response to somebody, they become part of the world, this world that we're in. And then that sound is you know, they say when a baby takes their first breath, yeah, there's different kinds of winds inside the baby, and that it's sacred. With every breath or every sound you make is sacred. So it goes back to, I mean, there's a lot of different aspects and components of it, but essentially it's that children are sacred, and we have to be careful with what they absorb or what they hear. And because we want them to be persons of great virtue, persons who are, you know, considered valuable themselves.
Well, I'm bubbling with many, many questions, too many to even ask you. And I'm aware that there was Karen wanted to ask one. So I'm going to allow one question, even though I want there to be 1,000, because this is a beautiful discussion. Karen, did you want to unmute?
Yes, I am. You have some prayer flags, what look like prayer flags behind your head. And I wondered if it's possible to tell us what those mean. Each symbolize, there's different symbol on each flag. It might take too long, but I'm just.
Yeah, it'll take a long time. But you can see there's a bear, turtle, deer, a hen, quail, fish, and there's a bird that's looks like a bird in the back. It's made by a family that's Tiwa from the Pueblos in this area, and so they symbolize, of course, you know, have different meanings for different people, but I like it because it's behind me, and in the front part of my office looks outside. So I like seeing like the trees and bushes and everything in the front of me as I'm working, and then have the prayer flags and the different things in the back, kind of like surrounding myself with support.
Thank you.
Luci, I want to just mention that I've put your website where people can learn more about you into the chat room just now. I've moved it up and just added it. And then also, you had mentioned this wonderful independent bookstore in Santa Fe where you are, the Collected Works bookstore, and that is a place where people could purchase books, and they can purchase your poetry collection, A Radiant Curve, at this bookstore as well. And then also you and I talked about mentioning that your work is also collected. Some of your poems are also in the collection, the anthology that's edited by Joy Harjo, When the Light of the World Was Subdued, Our Songs Came Through, which was, I believe, just published. And did you want to take a minute and just recommend that to anyone?
Yes, it's the first anthology of sort of complete anthology of Native American literature in the US, or in the Americas actually, and it ranges from writings from around 1500 to now. So it's really rich and includes over 160 poets, then over 100 different nations. It's a wonderful collection, and it's Norton Anthology, which is like the standard in American literature courses and study. So it's available at Collected Works, and Joy Harjo and I, Joy is the poet laureate, the US Poet Laureate. She and I signed copies of it. So Collected Works has signed copies of the anthology if you're interested in it. I recommend it. It's a really curated by Joy Harjo, and it's very well done.
Beautiful. I'm going to see if so Leslie's put the title in for me. Thank you so much for doing that, Leslie. And, you know, I think I'm feeling like we've only gotten the slightest taste of you and your work, your wisdom, and your craft today. But I'm excited because we've had some preliminary talks about you doing a Friday free write for us in the near future. So Leslie's on it to get you scheduled for that. And then we've also preliminarily talked about a 4-week webinar with you. So for those of you who are listening today, please look in the near future for the possibility of Luci being on our faculty and offering a webinar. And thank you again so much for your reading. We'll transition now to hearing from all of those of you who have signed up to read your work. And I'm going to suggest that everybody mute except for the first person that Katarina is going to read the 3 names, I believe, so you'll know to get ready. And so the first, and I'm also going to stop the recording. Thanks.